All right. Oh, we are live. So, while everyone's kind of watching a lot of headlines on Nvidia and some of the tech stocks, um, it seems like there's a lot of real money moving into defense AI right now. And there's some companies we're watching like BigBear.AI or RedWire and a handful of little known defense stocks that they're positioning themselves for the next wave right now. And we've gotten to catch some moves so far, or we got to catch some moves. We got caught a move this morning on Tesla TSLL. That was a 2.5% trade in the session today. And listen, if you missed that AMD flash sale for Stockmates, don't beat yourself up. We've reopened the AI boom offer for Stockmate, but it's only for a limited time. So that means you can join our daily live trading sessions, see exactly where we're entering and exiting trades, and get ahead of some of these market shifting moves before they hit the mainstream. So again, it's the second link in the description, but it's expiring soon. So don't wait, go have a look there. So the first one we're going to be jumping into here is going to be BigBear.AI. We saw them recover after hours about 0.68%. Today, we saw them sell down to this level around $5.83. Now, why does it matter? Why does it matter right now? They are in a position where there's a lot of new budgets from the Department of Defense. We see the big, beautiful bill with more spending in defense. They kind of cratered on their guidance, but they got a $380 million backlog and they got about $390 million in cash. And so I think one of the news today, so you guys might have seen some of their deployments of the VeriScan, is that they got out into over 12 airports, major airports. We've actually gotten our face scanned many times there at places like Denver International Airport, Chicago, Los Angeles, JFK. But they came out with a news article today, Big Bear, I think. Was it today? All right, a couple days ago. Don't see where it's at. But they were raising some more money. They were raising some more money, which is interesting. It's pretty aggressive, but it kind of leads us to believe that maybe they're planning something big. I mean, if they had that earnings they had where they came in with the negative income, on paper, it looked pretty bad. On actual net income, it was about negative 10 million, but on paper, it's about 228 million. So not so hot. But their balance sheet, they really are increasing their balance sheet. And they're kind of like, all right, we're going to go through pain right now. This is something we're having a headwind with. Maybe it's the army contracts, the data architecture stuff that they're doing for them. That's kind of a headwind. It's taking a little longer. And they're like, pain now, pipeline later. Let's build out the infrastructure. Let's raise money to get up to 600 million. And so that's why we're watching them. So really, if what we're looking at for Big Bear is we're watching these levels here. Last week, we saw them bounce back about 40% up into this $6.22 range. And we see them sell back down from 622 down into 580. And one thing to note about that sell down is they sold down here to a previous resistance level. So that's just where they're at now. So kind of, that's in the weeds. Overall, they're up about just really in the last year, they're up about 350%. So they have a really good return the last year. We started covering them here around $1 a share, and we got in around $2.80, and we continued to add to our long-term positions. But we saw them surge to $10 by February, get back down in there and into April. By April, they were $2, and they now are trying to, maybe keep the trend. They recently kind of have had this trend where they're kind of selling down just a little bit after, especially the earnings. You see that sell down there, and now recovering. And these are kind of the support levels we've seen over the last week. They got a support level at 550, which they kind of validated today. We actually saw them sell down there, and then, or not 550, 575, and then they have another support at $5 a share. So underneath here, around $5 a share. So this is kind of what it looks like on the near term. We're going to be looking closely. We have long-term positions in Big Bear, and we're going to continue to watch for a breakout. Right now, they're consolidating. Maybe they sell back down, and that's fine. They could sell down to $4 a share in the near term. It's possible. But really what we're looking at from a longer term perspective, kind of this market cap build, seeing something like this getting up in this $26 or 26% range, up to about $9 a share, somewhere in there. So those are like the longer term guidance. We might see them sell down more, but that's how the longer term looks. So near term, we're going to be watching super close at their contracts, see if they could pull in some more revenue as they are getting ready for the World Cup. So World Cup is 2026 FIFA World Cup, and then they got 2028 Olympics. According to Big Bear, they're getting ready for those events right now. So the other key that we have happening here, they're a defense company we're watching really closely. The other defense company that we really wanted to cover too is going to be CTM stock. CTM stock is kind of in the same industry. They are in the defense market. We can take a look at them here. And you can see right now they've been raising capital still, but overall their financials revenue-wise have actually still looked pretty promising. So they have a $100 million contract, and they also have increased their revenue quarter over quarter, year over year. And they recently just came in with 14 million in revenue. So again, over $100 million contracts. Their current market cap's at 100 million even, and they are trying to hold that $1.10 range, which we'll get into. But the total assets up to 44 million basically, with 11 million in liabilities. So really healthy there for CTM stock. And this is where we're watching CTM. I almost want to get rid of some of these drawings because it looks crazy. Basically, we saw them rising here, finding support and resistance, and then they've now consolidated. They're starting to find this level. They sold down to $1 a share today, and then recovered back up to $1.11. And we're kind of watching. That's a really key level. They got that support there at $1 a share. We'd like to see them hold above $1, maybe even make this jump back up into these levels, $1.25 to up to $1.50, which would be about a 30% increase. So about 15 to 30% increase for CTM. Why we look at them, and we'll kind of give a better idea. They are building agentic AI right now for government and federal customers. They work with the U.S. government, cybersecurity, and software deployments. But really where we're looking at too is a breakdown of what is a really solid company from a financial perspective. They do slowly but surely raise money, and we see them doing that. But from a revenue standpoint is what we like to see. They've got some really good growth there, and coming in with some contracts that are notable for their size. So we're going to continue to watch them there, see if they can hold that level. Let's get into RedWire. I see some good comments here. You got Kush is in the building. Mark is here. Elvis, thanks for tuning in. You said the magic word RedWire, Mark says. We're going to take a look at RedWire. Andrew, Roman, Kurtz. Hey, Kurt. Kurt says, what's up? Hi, what's going on, bro? Elvis says, can you please consider a review of RedWire? Did we put RedWire in the title? We did, right? So yeah, of course. That's what we're about to do. All right. Faith, Love, Peace says RedWire with a rocket ship. All right, RedWire. Okay, we'll take a look at it. Michael says CEO sold 500,000. I don't know if that's the CEO of, is it CTM or CEO of what company, Michael? We can take a look. And all right, Crazy Bro says LES. All right, there's some good comments there. All right, let's jump in. RedWire. So notably, RedWire actually has a partnership with BigBear.AI. Did you guys know that? RedWire and BigBear.AI are partnered. So we're going to jump into space tech with RedWire. Let's pull up the ticker symbol. It's going to be RDW. RedWire. They have sold back down to a rising support level. So we see them sell back down into this range. Quick story on RedWire. Over the last year, they've seen some big spikes up into $20 a share. But what we're watching here is when I got to go meet them in person, I actually got to meet some executives there. Um, was they've really focused on building some space tech for some really large contracts, and their quarter snapshot from the revenue outlook standpoint actually looks really good. They got Department of Defense contracts. Closed Edge Autonomy is a company they recently purchased. They work with the U.S. Army. They have these things that are deep sat they work with, and they have this thing called Acorn 2.0, which is an AI powered digital engine. And so they're also kind of in drones and defense down on Earth, but they're also in space tech. So we see them make a run of about 60% year over year. At one point, they were up 400% back here. And we have some long-term positions on RedWire. They're kind of similar in our nature to some of the other companies we like APLD. APLD is now leading our list today. They're crushing it. AMD, we've been talking about quantum stocks like Rigetti when they was around $1 a share. Black Sky is right up there. Rocket Lab is up there. RedWire is up there. And so why is RedWire up there? Why is this one that personally we were watching? Well, they are building this market cap. They kind of have this gradual increase. They've had a sharp decline recently. But what they're focusing on right now is a couple levels here. You got this level right here that they kind of sold down to, if not even broke a little bit below here at $8.65 and recovered back up to $9 a share. When we look at the movement though, pretty interesting. They came in with earnings. They sold off here pretty aggressively right around earnings. Didn't have the same recovery as, for example, BigBear.AI. They actually held down and they've been holding this $9 range. Most likely what we're looking for with RedWire on a bullish sentiment recovery be something like this. We start to see that 200-day moving average, that green line, sweep down, and maybe we cross above. Now this green line, oftentimes in a bull market, this 200-day moving average acts as a support. Do you guys see that? It's very common. In a bear market, it acts as a resistance. You see that? So maybe it started to cross below and then now it's been acting as a resistance. Really key level right here. Looking for it to break above this 200-day moving average and also break above the EMA, that blue line. The blue line is a little tighter, but it's also the same. Like if it's bullish, we're holding above that blue line. If we're bearish, that EMA is going to be acting as a resistance. Now we started to see it really act as a resistance through earnings. Then they found the support. And right now they're trying to push up above the EMA and they're trying to push up above this 200-day moving average. And they're actually at a support right now. So we're kind of looking for this recovery. Now, if they don't hold it and it breaks below, the next level to watch is about $6.50. That's the next level of support. I don't want to see that as a holder. I'm not really looking for that. What I'm looking for potentially here is this potential trade. We're in a few trades already this week and it's Monday, but we're going to be looking for something like this, about a 15 to 30% swing upwards. We'll have to watch the general market, make sure things are on track as far as, direction. But this is what we're looking at. 30% swing up into that $12 range. And maybe even a continuation of trend, something like this. We're really looking at RedWire as being a top company. Maybe they get up into not 30%, but 100%, 200%, as they're a space tech company that has some momentum. Now, why do they got momentum? Well, the market they're in, a lot of growth in the sector of space tech. When I went to Colorado Springs and I talked with the company, they had just made an announcement. And it was this right here: RedWire and iSpace US jointly pursue commercial lunar exploration missions. And this just came out this year that it's a $2.6 billion deal. And they are said to be one of the 14 prime contractors. So not only that, they got this deal right, and they could potentially get a nice piece of it. They go up into defense tech and buying some more air tech. They buy this Edge Autonomy company, and they are working on solar panels, even robots in space. They're they're doing software, and they're expanding pretty quickly. They even got some U.S. Army contracts there. They got some other larger contracts. They're a $1.3 billion company, so they're up there, right? They're up there in the market cap already. Not huge. Some other space companies, Planet Labs, 2.5 billion, or Rocket Lab. What are we at now? 20 billion, something like that, or more. But when we look at RedWire, they've had pretty consistent revenues, and their revenues have really increased year over year. So if you look back to 2020, I think they were founded in 2020, but they're already seeing revenue ramp up. Since 2020, they went from 44 million to 137 in 2021 to 160 million in 2022 to 240 million in 2023, and then 300 million in 2024. They're actually seeing a lot of growth on the revenue side of things, which revenue's up about 24% year over year so far. Net income was down, meaning they didn't have as favorable net income. Their profit margins went down. You can see that in the last quarter especially. But in 2025, they're on track to do above 250 million. So if they can push a few contracts, we might see them even continue that growth. The balance sheet was not looking good in 2024, right? We see their assets below the liability line, which was not a good key, but they just cleaned it up in 2025. You see this? Their assets surged in their last earnings. It's something a lot of people missed. They looked at the net income and they said, oh my gosh, negative 96 million. What they didn't realize is that RedWire's assets increased from 300 million to $1.5 billion. So now their total assets and contract values are exceeding their market cap. And if there's one thing that Benjamin Graham says, the mentor of Warren Buffett, and it's funny because right when I say that, I'm holding a piece of mail, and it's a Vanguard piece of mail, and I got this Vanguard account because my uncle introduced me at 18 years old to like Benjamin Graham and Warren Buffett and stuff. And I remember before that, I was getting things in the mail from my grandpa when I was young, and he used to send me all these pieces of mail, right, of all the different stocks. And I'd read through it, and they'd say Benjamin Graham this, Warren Buffett this, and I thought, I should probably learn from these guys. What I learned from Benjamin Graham, who's a longer-term value investor, and he's the author of The Intelligent Investor, a great book, is that he says one of the formulas is to buy companies that the market cap is less than that of their contracts and their total assets, or their pipeline and their total assets. Now with RedWire, they're in a position where they have more cash right now on their balance sheet, total assets, than they have as a market cap, which actually indicates a moment of being oversold. And that's actually what we see after their earnings. They sold down pretty aggressively. And that could be what is an overreaction. It could take some time. Maybe they don't recover right away. But from a long-term perspective, these are the types of moves that long-term investors love to see on space tech companies. And shorter-term investors potentially can make really good trades in the short-term swings. So that's what we normally like to do as well. Inside of StockMate, we trade all the time with RedWire, and we love to make sure to catch the space tech companies, and RedWire is the top one we're watching. Now, one thing I wanted to go into before we wrapped up was this RedWire and BigBear, because if I'm not mistaken, yeah, they are actually partnered. Did you guys know? RedWire and BigBear.AI signed an MOU for development of advanced cyber resiliency capabilities for future space systems. So, we talk about BigBear.AI with their security systems that are in the airports, the VeriScan technology that has been deploying at a lot of these major airports. You see this list here. You got Chicago and Denver International Airport, this stuff right here. But one thing that we don't talk about is the technologies that they're doing in space, or the technologies that they're doing for other industries. And that's where RedWire actually is partnered with BigBear. And so I find it interesting, right? that Big Bear could be making a move to what could be more of a broader surveillance, which is pretty interesting. Now that article there says the federal government and Department of Defense consider cyber resiliency of space assets to be a top priority, and we're excited to leverage our capabilities to contribute to the next generation of resilient architecture for space. I mean, it's kind of like imagine all of the like panic that was happening when the countries were very small and weren't expanded, then they were drawing their border lines. And they were like, we need to know our borders, we need to expand, we need to, this is our land, this is our land. They're trying to like basically cover their bases as a country. Like that's something that happened, 200 years ago that was pretty common. Like we didn't have clear boundaries around the US or around places. And what that caused was a very strong motivation to motivate companies that were expanding. So it might have been the railroads, it might have been the shipping and the freight, or the ocean companies that were at the ports, that they would encourage them to expand. And guess what? This is kind of the same deal, but in space. In space tech, there's not a lot of things drawn up. They're saying, hey, Lunar, for example, LUNR, which is a stock we've been trading a lot too over in space tech, is building on space, or they're building on the moon. And so, there's a lot of incentive for the government, for the US to say, hey, let's make sure we they got to the moon first. Let's make sure we're there. We got our presence. Let's build a base there. Let's make sure our satellites we can move around, and we're mobile in space, and we could move things from one satellite to another. I mean, that's really what they do at Lunar, for example. That's one of their recent contracts that we've seen. And so when we look at RedWire and kind of where they're going, they're in the AI powered digital engines. They work in space, and they also, they work with Big Bear in that partnership. That maybe that's something that could be more of a surveillance key for them. So we're gonna watch them there. They're at a $8.40 support level, maybe potentially making a run up into that $12 range first. That's kind of what we would look for, I guess, initially, something like that. Let's see if I can draw it out. It'd be about a 20 or 30% increase potential if they do bounce this $9 price point up into that $12 price point. So, a lot of times the shorter term trades we take in our daily live trading sessions, sometimes we take bigger positions, 20,000 or more, but a lot of times it's going to be shorter positions, just a small allocation of our account. Most of the stuff that we trade is something we're already holding long term. We're just looking to capitalize on some swings. And like RedWire, for example, if we were to invest like we did today in Tesla, TSLL, I think we did a $3,500 position. A swing like this potentially could be, a nice $1,000 trade. This swing right here after their earnings sell-off. So we're gonna watch there. It's a potential $1,000 trade that we could make possibly this week. And we're just gonna, obviously we'd have a plan together support wise. We'd watch that 850 support where they kind of bounced today, and watch that closely and see if an opportunity presents itself at market open. So again, guys, we're gonna keep you updated on the space tech. If you guys would like to see my entries and see my exits at market open tomorrow, I encourage you guys, we got our AI boom sale for StockMate. It's the second link in the description down below. So that's going to be closing soon. If you want to be there at market open, it's the second link down below. If I earned a thumbs up, hit the like button. I appreciate you all. Thanks so much for tuning in today. This is Andrew's tuning in. Andrew says from Australia, your channel has been really helpful for the investing journey. Andrew, let's go from Australia. That's awesome, man. Good to see you. Thanks for tuning in. I'll see you in the next video. Take care.